Hello, everybody. It's been a while because we've been lame and haven't done a podcast in a while. So
Life,
welcome
life happens sometimes.
to our Jesus Story podcast, featuring me and you, Christine and David Dalton. If you haven't been here before, I'm the good one and David is the smart one. And here we are.
So we're just sitting around our table, going to talk about a story from the life of Jesus.
Yeah.
Share the story and then discuss some of the implications of it.
Yes.
So it has been a while since we've been here.
Yeah, because you stopped loving God, I think.
No. Life happens. A lot of things have happened lately. Anything exciting that you want to share with somebody?
I got to see a Monet painting for real, and David didn't let me touch it to see if it was really bumpy.
I did not let you touch it. We had an opportunity to go back to Pittsburgh for the Dinner Church Summit. And while we were back there, we visited the Carnegie Art Museum in Pittsburgh.
Yes, we did.
It's the first time we've ever done an art museum like that.
It is. We've done a lot of cultural museums, but not anything really major before.
And one of the things they had on display there was Monet's water lilies.
Yep.
So that was a very cool. And they had a couple of Van Goghs, a couple of Rembrandts.
Not Rembrandt. Renoir. Renoir.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, sir. Oh my gosh. We did not see a Rembrandt. We saw Renoir.
I'm going to have to double check because I think you're wrong. So I'm not going to do it right now. But
you have your phone right there. Google it and tell him how wrong you are.
All right.
He's really wrong.
Real quick.
He's really, really wrong.
Google to the rescue.
Have you been telling people all this time that we saw a Rembrandt? Because we did not. He's typing on his phone. Bloop, 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 bloop.
The Carnegie Museum, I'm reading this direct from my has several works by Rembrandt, including, and lists a few of them. But you cannot tell me that I did not see a Rembrandt at the Carnegie Art Museum because they actually have some.
Which one did you see?
I don't remember.
No, you saw the girl in pink, which was Renoir.
Yes, we did see some Renoirs. I will agree with that.
You have to show me what Rembrandt we saw. Because I don't believe you.
All right. We'll have to go look that up later. We'll solve this argument later
your
on.
Wrongness.
No, because I don't think I'm wrong. I think you are misremembering. Should we actually do the Jesus story at some point?
While you talk about the Jesus story, you're going to tell the story and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Nope, you're not. Here's my phone. I did what I saw. I didn't list all of them they had. But anyway, we'll settle. You don't even know the pattern to unlock my phone.
I do too.
Okay. So let's talk about a Jesus story and actually get onto something that's going to be worthwhile, and you will save our little bantering for later. The story that we're looking at is in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. So in Matthew 21 through 16, Jesus is telling a story. It's commonly called the parable of the workers in the vineyard. I was reading somebody the other day. They actually refer to it, and I really like this. They referred to it as the parable of the generous employer, which I think is really interesting. Yes, that one's Renoir.
I know.
She's pulling up pictures of Renoir that we did see. So I really like that name for it because it shifts the emphasis from the employees and some of their issues, the workers in the field, to the generosity of the master. So Jesus tells a story. We'll pick it up in Matthew chapter 20, verse 1. Jesus says, the kingdom of God is kind of like this. Imagine there's a guy who owns a vineyard, and he goes out first thing in the morning to hire some day laborers for his vineyard. And this is something that would happen fairly often. You'd have day laborers in the towns, and people would come in and say, hey, I need X number of people to come out and work in my fields. And people who did not have consistent jobs would go to these places where the day laborers would gather, and they would hope that somebody would come by and hire them for the day. And it's a 12-hour workday at the time. So he goes out early in the morning and he goes to the place where he's going to find day laborers, and he finds some of them and he says, "Hey guys, come and work in my field. I will pay you a denarius, which is a standard day's wage for a full day's work." And they said, "Okay, that sounds fair. This is what we normally have." So they go out and they go to work in the field. And it's a 12-hour workday, right? So he comes back into town about 3 hours later. And there are still people there waiting to be hired. And he says, "Okay, guys, go out and work in my field. And at the end of the day, I'll pay you whatever's fair." And they say, "Okay, we'll go for it." And so they go out, and he comes back in about the 6th hour. So we're now halfway through the workday. There's still people there. And so he says, "Hey, you guys go out, work in my field. When we get to the end of it, I'll pay you whatever's fair." And then about the 9th hour, so like we're 9 hours into a 12-hour workday. So these guys are only going to work for like 3 hours. And he goes back out and he finds more of them and he says, "Guys, come work in my field." And so they come, and then he comes back into town again about the 11th hour. So this is 1 hour before quitting time. And he says, "Hey, come work in my field. And when we're done, I'll pay you whatever's fair." And they say, "Great." And so they go out and they work for an hour. At the end of the workday, the owner talks to his foreman, who hasn't shown up in the story until this point. He talks to his foreman and he says, "Hey, bring the laborers in to pay them, starting with the last and then going to the first ones that we hired." So he starts with the guys who have only worked for an hour, and they come in and he pays them a denarius, a full day's wage. And then those who had worked for 3 hours and pays them a full day's wage. And those who'd worked 6 hours and pays them a full day's wage. Those who'd worked 9 hours and pays them a full day's wage. And then he brings in those that he hired at first. The ones that had worked an entire day, and they were thinking, all of these other guys have got paid a full day's wage. They didn't work a full day. We did. So they're assuming that they're going to get paid more. And the foreman pays them each a full day's wage, exactly what they had agreed to. And they get upset about this, saying, wait a minute. These last guys did not work nearly as long as we did. We worked a full 12 hours. We worked for the full day. We worked in the blazing hot sun. We have borne the burden and heat of the day, is the way the King James translation puts it. And I love that phrasing, the burden and heat of the day. We have worked all day long, and you have made these last guys who have only worked for, 1 or 3 hours, you paid them the same amount as us. What the heck is up with that? This does not seem right. And the master, the employer says, guys, didn't we have a contract? Didn't we agree? Didn't we agree that we would do a full day's work for a full day's pay? I haven't cheated you. I gave you exactly what we talked about. I fulfilled my contract. Is it your problem that I want to be generous and pay the same amount to somebody who didn't work as long? Are what I want to with what I own? And then Jesus looks back to he wraps up his story and he looks back to the crowd and he says, okay, in the same way, the last will be first and the first will be last. Did I say going through verse 19? We actually went through verse 16. Because this is the end of verse 16.
I don't know what you said.
I hope I said 16 because this is the end of the story.
If you said 19, you would have been wrong as you were about the Rembrandt.
Okay. So, honey, first observation about this story. What stands out to you about this story?
This was something that has recently come to my attention that grabbed my interest in my heart and I don't know, makes me think differently about this. David also should silence his phone.
I should do that.
Maybe it's the Carnegie Museum telling you they don't have a Rembrandt.
My phone is silenced. Talk about the story.
And that is, I've never been a day worker. Have you?
I have not.
No, it's not something that is I mean, we see it around us. We see the guys lining up to get chosen to go work for the day. And I never thought about the amount of time and effort and work that goes into the people who have been trying all day to be chosen for
Mhm.
a job. And in some ways, I feel like Jesus is giving validation to the people, not who just were there and worked, but the people who spent the day trying to get to where he was. Does that make sense?
So there's a couple of things about that that I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, why is it that the master keeps coming into town to try to hire people?
Probably because there wasn't enough in there.
Well, what's interesting though is that it's the master that's doing it. Normally that would be the foreman's job.
I don't know these things.
Um, so it's the foreman who should have come in culturally. It's the foreman that should have come in, but the master keeps coming, and then he keeps coming back over and over and over and over and over again. And did he underestimate the amount of work that he, when he went in at the beginning of the day, shouldn't he have known, hey, I'm going to need 20 people. Let me hire 20 people. And yet he keeps coming back and finding more and hiring them and sending them into his field. It's like he is illustrating the concern of the master for the people who are those day laborers who are struggling to find a job for the day, to feed their family for the night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like Jesus is drawing attention to the concern of the master for those who need it. I think that kind of goes along with what you were saying a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. I always just took it kind of more at face value. It wasn't fair because the one people only worked 2 or 3 hours and the other people worked a huge long day.
So yeah, that's kind of the culmination of the story, right? And something I think is interesting, in Jesus' story, if the master would have called the people who worked all day first and paid them, and then to the people who worked less of a day and paid them, nobody would have complained about it. But it's like he is drawing attention
Mm-hmm.
to the generous heart of the master. It's not just like I have a generous heart, but he is wanting to make a point of it so that everybody sees the master's generous heart. And this is something that I think is really interesting because he's paying people who worked 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, the same as people who worked all day. And he defends it saying, you know what? It's mine. It's my money. If I want to give it away like this, I can. And I think it's drawing a lot of attention to that master's generous heart. And when we're looking at this and Jesus is saying, this is what the kingdom of God is like, I think by extension, he's saying, hey, this represents the generous heart of God. And then the concern of God for those who are struggling.
Yeah. What do you got?
Something else that I think is interesting. I just talked about one of the things I think is interesting. Something else I think is interesting is this. Imagine that you are in the position of one of those day laborers. And so you go in, you get there first thing in the morning, you're hoping to get hired because you need the money to take care of your wife and kids. And you're hoping to get hired, and the master comes by rolling up in his truck and says, hey, I need 20 guys to come work on my field. And so 20 guys jump in and you don't make it. And he drives off, and other people come throughout the day and hire more, but you haven't been able to get hired yet. He comes back in and says, hey, I need 10 more, and more people jump in. And you get to that point where it's getting discouraging, right? Because you're doing everything you know how to do to meet your needs, the needs of your wife, the needs of your kids. You're doing everything you know how to do. You're at the right spot. You're trying to flag people down. You're trying to get hired. In our common parlance, you're putting out the applications, you're trying to get interviews, trying to get hired, and nothing is working. And the day keeps going on and on and on. And you finally get to that point where you're thinking, this is not going to work. We're going to have to dip into the little bit that we have saved. We're going to have to try to scrape by. And, in that 3 hours left, 1 hour left, the master comes by and he says, what are you still doing here? And you're saying, nobody's hired me. I've tried. I've done everything I know how. And the master says, well, come on in and we'll just make work. Go out and work for an hour. And then you're one of the first ones to come in, and the master pays you a full day's wage. And all of your concerns go away.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping for just a few pennies to scrape by, and maybe we could make a meal out of, bread tonight. And all of your concerns go away because of the generous heart of the master that has just been poured out on you. I think we sometimes look at the people who worked all day and we talk about their responses, but imagine the joy and relief from those who were the last ones hired. And the master says, no, go back to your family with dignity. You're able to meet your needs. It's not charity. You did everything you could, and I'm going to reward that. I just think that's interesting.
It is.
What else you got?
What else you got? I think this is something from the perspective of the master of the they're angry because he's giving good gifts to others. And if we have an abundance, we should be as generous as he was. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a jealousy thing going on here.
Mm-hmm. And on one hand, I get the perspective of the people who have been there all day. It reminds me of the story of the prodigal son. From the older brother, I gave you my whole life. I never strayed. I've done the right thing, and here you are doing this amazing thing
throwing a party for my
right. So it reminds me of that same mindset.
Several of Jesus' stories really seem to emphasize this idea of the generosity of God.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes to the idea of, we've talked about the bubblegum Jesus. You put your money in, you turn the crank, and out comes your bubblegum. We think we know Jesus. We think we know God. And we put him in this box of, if I do this, if I am this good, then these should be my result. And Jesus is like, nope, you don't know. You know nothing.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Right.
But Jesus, coming back to this thought that Jesus tells these stories which emphasize the generosity of God.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting because I'm not sure we always see God as generous. I'm not sure we always see God as extravagant. We see God as just. We see God as fair. We see God as righteous. We see God as holy. But do we always see God as extravagantly generous?
Sometimes.
I think sometimes we do. I think a lot of people don't. I think we tend to focus on some of those other aspects of God, and we don't always see that extravagant generosity. I wonder if maybe that's something we should meditate on a little bit more. If we should complicate. If we should contemplate. There we go. Get the right word in. Not complicate, contemplate. If we should contemplate, I almost did it again, that extravagant generosity of God. That gives forgiveness to the younger son, the prodigal son, freely, that pours out unearned money on these later workers to help meet their needs, that forgives the thief on the cross in the last moments of his life, that generous, extravagant love of God. I think that's something that maybe we need to ponder a little bit more. There's another thought that I have that here that's kind of interesting. And that is this. When the master goes into town to hire day laborers, he negotiates with the first group. He says, hey guys, here's what I got. I've got a vineyard. I need some guys to come work in it. I will pay a denarius, a full day's wage, for a full day's work. You guys okay with that? And they're like, yeah, that's going rate for time. Yes, absolutely. We will do that. So they have a contract, verbal contract, but we have a contract here. 1 day's work for 1 day's pay. But every other time he goes in, he doesn't offer them. He just says, you know what? When the time is right, I'll do what's fair. And so the guys, every other group that goes out without knowing what they're going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
They do it either A, because they're desperate,
Right.
or B, because they trust the master's heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is interesting when it comes to God, right? They are throwing themselves on the mercy of the master. We need a job. Okay, you won't tell me exactly what you'll pay me. You know what? I am going to trust you to do the right thing. I'm in. There is this level of trust in what the master is going to do. I don't have to have the contract. I don't have to have it in writing. I just trust in the heart of the master. And I think this comes back again. We're talking about the kingdom of God is like these things. So I think this raises a question for us of how much do we trust the heart of God?
Right.
Because there are times that things happen that we don't understand in our lives. There are times that we struggle. There are times we're confused. There are times when circumstances don't look like God is fair. In those moments, are we looking for a contract with God? You were talking about the vending machine Jesus or the
Right.
bubblegum Jesus. Are we looking for that contract? Okay, God, if I do this, this, and this is what's going to come out? Or are we willing to trust the heart of God, even if we don't see the bubblegum right now?
I think the other thing it demonstrate is they're God's gift to bestow. People don't usually go up to you and say, please give me this gift.
Mm-hmm.
We have 4 kids, and we give them different things because they're not the same people. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is coming up. We are not going to get all of our kids the same presents. We've never done that because they're not the same person. And I think God sees what they need.
I am reminded of the parable of the talents.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've talked about the parable of the talents yet.
I'll have to look at your
We might
list.
have. I'll have to go back to my list. Anyway, the parable of the talents, the master, as he's getting ready to leave, he's pulled out 3 of his servants, and he gives to one of them 5 talents, to another 2 talents, to another 1 talent. And Jesus makes a statement, he gave to each according to his ability. I think sometimes what we do is we look at the gifts God bestows, and it's like, God, why didn't I get that one?
Mm-hmm.
Why did that person had more than me? The second guy, the guy who gives 2 talents, I think is like the hero of the story, because he doesn't complain about, Master, why did you give him 5 talents and me only 2?
Mm-hmm.
He says, let me take what God has given me, and let me take what the master has given me, and let me use that to the best of my ability. And when the master comes back, and the guy who has 5 talents says, hey, I made 5 more, And the master says, that's awesome. You did a great work. And the guy who has two comes and he says, hey, I made two. And the master doesn't look at him and say, really? The other guy gave 5. Why did you only get 2? He says, no, you did a wonderful job. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. We sometimes, I think, tend to compare ourselves to others. That's exactly what I think these guys who are hired first, they're comparing themselves to everybody else, saying, why did you give them that and you only gave us this? And it would be equivalent to the second servant saying, why did you give him 5 talents? You only gave me 2 talents. Rather than just saying, hey, this is what the master has given me. This is what God has given me. This is what God has blessed me with. Let me celebrate and enjoy and use that to the best of my ability, rather than sitting on the sidelines complaining that somebody got a gift I didn't.
Yep.
In the King James, I kind of like the way it phrases this in the King James. He says, don't I have the right to do what I want with my own? Or is your heart evil because mine is good? Which I think is a hilarious translation. Literally what he's saying is, are you guys jealous because I'm being generous? Why is that an issue? You have what you need. You worked all day. You get your full day's wage. Your needs are met. You're going to go home tonight. You're going to tell your family, hey, I worked all day in the fields, had a good day's work. I stopped by on the store on the way home, and this is what we've got for dinner. And all of our needs are met for the day, and it was awesome. And hopefully I can go work there tomorrow again, too. And, you got what you need. Everything has been met. Why are you worried about what God is doing in somebody else's life?
Yeah.
Focus on the blessings of God in your life rather than being jealous because God has poured out blessings on somebody else. Is your heart evil because his is good? All right. Do you have any other thoughts on this story?
No, I do not.
I think we kind of covered most of the thoughts I had on the story as well.
Okay. Then we should, say goodbye.
Okay, but before we do,
Are you going to admit that you were wrong?
I'm just going to say my wife has looked it up, and apparently the Carnegie Art, even though they do have Rembrandts and occasionally do not have them in their permanent collection, so she might be right. I am not going to fly back to Pittsburgh and go visit it again just to see if they actually have a Rembrandt there. She might be right. It might have been Van Gogh, Renoir, and Monet that we got to see.
What?
All right. Now, here's my question for you, my dear.
Sir, yes, sir.
If I ask you to close in prayer, can you do so without gloating?
I doubt it.
Go ahead and close it or pray for us anyway.
All right, I'm going to lay my hands on you if you need it. God, I thank you for this day and this time together that we can come and do our best to dig deeper into your word and what you want us to see in it. And I just pray that you'd help others see what you want them to see. And that's all I've got. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, we will. Christine and I have been talking about, we're going to try to do a little bit better about being more consistent about recording some of these podcasts. We'd like to get back to doing them once every 2 weeks if we can. So we are going to try to do better, but sometimes life happens, and if we don't make it, that's okay.
We're not going to. When we're back.
We'll be back as soon as we can. All right. In the meantime, until we get a chance to connect again, may Christ continue to be formed in you.